Carl Jung once described a phenomenon that sent chills down his spine. The moment an empath finally stops enduring. For years, they have lived like silent librarians of an invisible archive. Every time they are hurt, another file is tucked onto a shelf. Every time they apologize for something that wasn't their fault, another drawer is locked tight. To the outside world, they appear gentle, fragile, harmless. But in the clinical cases Jung observed at the Zurich clinic, he saw something different. They were building a living database of human behavior, detailed and precise to a terrifying degree. And then one day, when the last thread of trust is broken, that library no longer stays quiet. The doors swing open. The files are pulled out one by one, not with shouting, but with a chilling calm. They speak little, but every word lands like undeniable evidence, as precise as a surgeon pointing to each failing organ before cutting it away. In that moment, the sensitivity they once carried as a burden transforms into their sharpest weapon. From that point forward, they are no longer the ones carrying everyone else's weight. They become a mirror so clear, so piercing, that manipulators retreat in silence. And the question is, have you ever felt a library like that within you, waiting for the day it bursts open? The problem with the empath is not that they don't know, but that they know too much, and were taught from childhood not to trust it. As children, when they said, "I can see you're sad, Mom," they were dismissed with, "I'm fine." When they sensed anger building in the house, they were told, "Don't imagine things." Each time, another file was added to the library, but stamped with the label invalid. By the time they reach adulthood, the same script repeats itself. You feel your partner pulling away, but whisper to yourself, "I'm just being paranoid." You sense a colleague undermining you, but you stay silent for the sake of harmony. You keep filing, stacking, storing, but each record carries a slip of denial. Jung observed dozens of such cases at the Zurich clinic, patients who were not insane but had lost faith in their own inner data. They lived like librarians of a vast archive they were forbidden to consult. The result? A psychological split. Inside, a storage room, frighteningly accurate. Outside, a person always apologizing, always smiling, always saying, "I'm just too sensitive." This split is precisely what makes them vulnerable to manipulation. Because all it takes is someone saying, "You're overthinking," and you discard an entire stack of evidence your inner system has been carefully recording. But the truth is, that notebook never disappears. It remains, growing thicker day by day. And it is this that exhausts you. You live in two worlds at once, a body weighed down by a vague, unnamed fatigue, and a mind terrified of opening the files it already holds. Jung wrote, "They do not go mad because they feel too much. They collapse because they are forced to believe their feelings are wrong." That is the breaking point. If you continue on this path, one day the library will overflow. And when the doors finally burst open, you will no longer be the familiar version of yourself that everyone once knew. Carl Jung once wrote, "What is denied returns as fate." For the empath, what is denied is not the truth outside, but the ability to read that truth. They have seen, recorded, and known, but were trained to dismiss it. This is the mechanism psychology calls dissociation. One part of them continues the librarian's work, carefully filing each memory, each irregular detail. Another part is trained to smile, to nod, to say, "It's fine." This split produces a strange exhaustion. You always feel something is wrong, yet you force yourself to believe everything is fine. Jung called the part pushed into the dark the shadow. Do not mistake it. The shadow does not only contain forbidden desires. For empaths, it also contains the rejected strengths, the righteous anger, the razor-sharp accuracy of observation, the almost clinical ability to dissect what others try to hide. Because you deny it, the shadow becomes the hidden operator. It erupts as sudden anxiety, restless nights, or relationships you know will wound you, yet cannot leave. This is the crucial link. You are not weak because you are too sensitive. You are weak because you have learned to use that sensitivity against yourself. You forgive when you should stop. You stay silent when you should speak. You gather the files and lock them away, all in the name of preserving a fragile peace. But Jung observed that this accumulation cannot last forever. It always leads to a breaking point, what he called a clarity event. It rarely comes from minor betrayals. It comes from the moment of ultimate betrayal, from the person you trusted completely. And in that moment, the entire inner library bursts open. The files fly out, arranging themselves into a complete picture so undeniable that you can no longer pretend. This is not madness. This is integration. The moment when the shadow joins forces with intuition, producing a perception so sharp that neither you nor those around you are prepared. And once integration happens, you are no longer the buried librarian. You become an emotional archaeologist, transforming the archive that once caused you pain into a map leading to your deepest strength. Jung often emphasized, the true battlefield of the human being is not out there, but in the unconscious. For the empath, that unconscious is like a recording machine that never stops. It logs every detail, but at the same time imposes a cruel command. Deny what you have seen. From childhood, you were taught that your feelings don't matter. You saw an argument, you spoke up, and were met with, "Don't imagine things." You noticed a lost look in someone's eyes. You asked and heard, "I'm fine." The unconscious learned the lesson immediately. What I see must be wrong. And from there, the loop was born. Step 1. You receive the signal. Step 2. You deny it yourself. Step 3. You stay silent to keep the peace. Step 4. You blame yourself and try harder to be good. The cycle spins endlessly, leaving you exhausted and slowly stripping away your ability to trust yourself. This is why so many empaths become prime targets for manipulation. Others don't need to try very hard. A single phrase like, "You're overthinking," and you instantly discard the entire archive of evidence you've carefully stored. But Jung discovered something. That library never disappears. It only piles up in silence. Each time you stay quiet, another drawer locks shut. Each time you apologize, another file gets stamped. Until one day, the archive becomes too heavy. Jung called this the breaking point. It often arrives through betrayal, not a minor slight, but a knife to the back from the one you trusted absolutely. And when that moment hits, the entire archive comes alive. The files begin to play all at once. Others expect you to collapse, to scream, to beg. But what Jung observed was something far more terrifying, a profound calm. The empath does not cry, does not shout. They grow still, and then they begin to speak. Not much, but each sentence is a file being opened, a piece of evidence placed on the table, undeniable, clinical. Jung described it as the most chilling moment. No longer the victim, they become the surgeon, pointing to each diseased organ before cutting it out. This is not revenge. This is integration. When the shadow, the anger, the intelligence, the intuition long suppressed, merges with the archive of memory, the empath transforms into what Jung called the whole person. And here lies the cognitive twist. You were never weak. You simply dimmed your sharpest capacity in the hope of being loved. What hurt you was never that you saw too much. It was that you forced yourself to pretend you didn't. Once the unconscious shifts its gears, the game ends. You are no longer the sponge absorbing the feelings of everyone else. You become the clear mirror that forces every manipulator to step back. And if you dare to stay through to the end, you will confront what most never will. The pain you feared all along was never a bottomless pit. It was the only doorway out of the loop. Imagine inside you exists a vast library no one else can see. Every shelf is lined with files of the times you stayed silent, the apologies you never owed, the moments when you sensed something was wrong but erased it anyway. Others think you forgot, but in truth, you remember everything. You know the exact shift in tone when someone lied. You recall the precise timeline of betrayal, and you note the way their eyes drifted the moment the truth slipped out. All of it is stored in that library. You've simply never allowed yourself to open the files. Jung observed that this archive never sleeps. It quietly accumulates until even its keeper grows exhausted. You may feel like a librarian trapped between millions of stacked folders, not knowing which one to read, only knowing you must keep shelving more. But when the breaking point comes, the role of the librarian ends. You become the compiler. You pull out the drawers, and file by file, they begin to connect. The complete picture emerges. Others are stunned because they never imagined you remembered so much. You don't need to shout. You only need to read the right passage, and denial is no longer possible. That library, once a burial ground for pain, suddenly becomes a map. It shows you exactly who deserves to walk with you and who doesn't. It transforms sensitivity into analysis, pain into data. Jung once wrote in his journals, "When an empath opens their archive, no one can manipulate them again." This is the central metaphor. You are not a vessel soaking up everyone else's emotions. You are the keeper of a vast library. The question is not whether you have that library. It has always been there. The real question is this: will you continue letting it gather dust in silence? Or will you dare to open it and let the truth guide you into a new life? If you listen closely, you'll realize your body has been sounding the alarm for a long time. Your heart races every time you hear the voice of someone you don't trust, yet you force a smile. You wake up already tired, not from lack of sleep, but because you know today you will once again have to play the role of the peacemaker. Your phone buzzes, and a part of you wants to throw it across the room, yet your hand still picks it up, still says, "It's fine, don't worry." Each of these small acts is like a drop of water falling, slowly carving a deep groove. Jung once wrote that the danger for empaths is not that they feel too much, but that they repeatedly betray their own perception. And this betrayal isn't loud. It repeats every day until you no longer realize you're doing it. If you don't change, the price won't come through one great catastrophe, but through a slow erosion. One day you'll find yourself standing in front of a mirror, staring into your own eyes and feeling like a stranger. Who is this person? Not the version of you who once saw everything with sharp clarity, but a version that has gradually erased itself just to fit neatly into other people's expectations. That is the most frightening part. Not being hurt by others, but allowing yourself to disappear, piece by piece. If you continue down the same path, You will eventually lose the ability to distinguish between what is true intuition and what is fear implanted in you. And by then, even when the chance to change finally appears, you will no longer have enough trust in yourself to reach out and take it. You once believed that your sensitivity was a flaw that made you weak, an open wound too easy for the world to exploit. But Jung would tell you this: the mistake was never in your sensitivity. The mistake was in how you were taught to treat it. From the beginning, you were conditioned to believe that to be loved, to be accepted, you had to blur out the very things you saw most clearly. And so you turned your gift of perception into a burden, your intuition into something you had to apologize for. That is why you felt weak. But look again. What hurt you was not the fact that you felt too much, but the fact that you forced yourself to stop trusting what you felt. This is where you need a new language. Instead of saying, "I'm too sensitive," say, "I notice more than most." Instead of apologizing for picking up on details, say, "I trust the data my body and mind are collecting." Instead of believing silence preserves peace, admit the truth. Silence often only means betraying yourself. This pivot doesn't turn you into some hardened, artificial version of yourself. It turns you into someone quietly precise. Jung called this individuation, the process of no longer living as someone else's shadow, but as a whole, independent being. When you dare to use new words to describe yourself, the entire dynamic shifts. Those who once manipulated you grow uneasy because their old buttons no longer work. They wait for your apology, and you remain silent. They expect you to carry their weight, and you refuse. They try to deny reality, and you simply state one line of truth, and they cannot respond. That small shift in language rearranges the entire structure of power. You are no longer a reservoir of energy for others to drain. You become the center of gravity that forces them to face themselves. The world begins to treat you differently, not because you shout louder, but because your quiet carries a strength they can no longer dismiss. Try whispering this to yourself. "I don't need anyone's validation to believe in me." If you dare to repeat it, you will feel a current move through your body. That current is not rebellion, it is return. Return to yourself. And from that moment on, you are no longer the one begging for affection. You are the one who chooses where to place your affection. This is the turning point Jung believed transforms an empath from the one who is exploited into the one who cannot be manipulated. And that is the new language. No longer, "I am the weak, sensitive one," but "I am the one who sees." Some changes don't require grand declarations, only small movements repeated every day. The first step: observe your body. When your chest tightens, when your stomach knots slightly as someone says something untrue, don't dismiss it. Simply place your hand on your chest and admit, "I felt this." Acknowledgement is the first key that unlocks everything. The second step: train yourself in the right to delay. If a message confuses you, don't rush to answer. Give it an hour, an afternoon, or even a day. That distance frees you from the reflex to please and brings you back to clarity. The third step: practice saying no in small places. It might be declining an invitation you don't actually want, or saying no when someone asks for help and you don't have the energy. These small refusals are like muscles. The more you train them, the stronger they grow. The fourth step: create a short ritual to wash away the weight of the day. It could be writing a few lines, walking for 10 minutes, or simply turning off all devices and sitting in silence. Because when you allow yourself to pause, you're sending the signal that you are worthy of rest. Jung believed that a person is only truly strong when they can stand on the side of their own intuition. And the path to that strength does not lie in changing your entire life in one day, but in changing how you live inside each small moment. if you keep ignoring the signals inside you, the price will not strike like some sudden accident, but seep in day after day. You'll find yourself losing trust in your own judgment to the point where every decision feels like it needs to be confirmed by someone else. You'll keep walking into the same relationships on repeat. You give until you're empty. They take until nothing is left. And then, one morning, you'll look in the mirror and see a face that feels unfamiliar smiling at the right time, nodding in the right places, but with eyes that have been extinguished long ago. Jung once warned, "The shadow you refuse to face will return in the shape of your fate." And that fate isn't something grand or distant. It is the very loop of exhaustion you're already living. But if you stop, if you choose to face it, the result is entirely different. When you dare to trust the data of your inner world, you become so clear that no one can mislead you again. When you practice saying no without guilt, you open space for what truly deserves to enter. When you stop fearing being misunderstood, you begin to earn respect, even from those who once dismissed you. This is not an outer makeover. It is a psychological rebirth. The empath who integrates their shadow does not lose their softness. They simply grow a spine to support it. Jung called this state love with boundaries, still able to feel deeply, but able to protect oneself at the same time. And the closing philosophy Jung left us is this: you do not become free by running from pain, but by understanding why it is there and letting it guide you back to yourself. If you refuse to change, you will repeat. But if you dare to change, you will not only break the loop, but you will also step into a life where the shadow no longer threatens you, because it has already become part of your strength. One day, you will realize you no longer need to run everywhere trying to prove your worth. On that day, you'll walk lighter, not because the world has become less harsh, but because you've stopped carrying burdens that were never yours. People around you will sense the difference. You speak less. You are harder to predict, yet your eyes are clearer. That is the first time you are fully present in your own life, with no additions, no apologies. Jung once wrote, "Awakening is not about becoming someone else, it is about becoming yourself fully." An awakened empath does not lose their heart. They simply learn how to stop letting it be trampled. And then, the relationships around you begin to filter themselves. Manipulators step back, while the genuine ones move closer. This video cannot walk the path for you. It can only place the question, will you continue to let dust gather on the mirror inside you? Or will you dare to wipe it clean and see yourself clearly once more? Try holding a few seconds of silence when this ends, and listen for what your inner voice is trying to say. And if you wish to go further, there are still deeper layers ahead, where you will discover not only the strength to protect yourself, but also a capacity you never believed you had.